research tells us that family support is critical. And whatever that family looks and sounds like doesn't matter, but family support is critical to getting through a dissertation.
You're listening to the Happy Doc Student Podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing clarity to the often mysterious doctoral process. Do you feel like you're losing your mind? Let me and my guests show you how to put more joy in your journey and graduate with your sanity, health, and relationships intact. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Frederick, and this is episode 56. In this unique episode, I welcome Dr. Michael Stewart and Dr. Kelly Olsen Stewart. Michael and Kelly got married and started a family and then decided to pursue their doctoral degrees. They are here today to share insights about how to not just survive, but thrive when there's a doctor in the house. Now, before we get started, let me tell you just a little bit more about these amazing individuals. Michael has a diverse work history, including high school and elementary school teaching, workforce development, human resources, law enforcement, and K-12 administration. He received his bachelor's degree in sociology from the University of Notre Dame, a master's degree in counseling from Indiana University, and his doctorate in education with leadership and innovation from Arizona State University. Kelly has been in K-12 and higher education for over 25 years in various roles, including classroom teacher, technology trainer, staff developer, district administrator, and professor. She received her bachelor's degree in elementary education with a reading specialty from Indiana University South Bend, and both her master's degree and doctorate in education with leadership and innovation from Arizona State University. Kelly and Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Heather, so much for having us here and appreciate your work on your podcast. It's really been fun to listen to.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for inviting us.
Everybody loves a story. And so why don't you start by telling us how you guys met and where it was in your relationship that you collectively thought, hey, how about if one of us goes and gets a doctorate?
That's funny. This is perfect timing because on December 31st, it will be our 20-year wedding anniversary. So it's a good retrospective look back at our story. Michael and I met in South Bend, Indiana, and had common friends. I'm waiting to see if Michael will jump in with something obnoxious.
No, it was funny. We knew each other, or knew of each other for years. And then everywhere I went, she would be there. Like I'd go to Barnes and Noble because that was a thing. And there's Kelly looking over the aisle at me, and I'd go to get my license renewed, and who's behind me? 5 people. There's Kelly again. So finally, I'm just like, you know what? We should probably get married so people don't think that you're just following me around all over South Bend. I'm pretty sure that's the way I remember it.
The universe was conspiring for you guys to meet, for sure.
Right.
I mean, it is crazy that somebody reads books and gets their license renewed when they're in the same letter sequence. So we met in South Bend, and then we ended up moving to Arizona and followed his parents who had retired in Arizona. And we've lived here ever since. Got married the same year that we moved out, and 20 years has just gone by. At some point in that discussion of our life, laying it out in front of us, I don't know that we talked about getting a doctorate. Michael already had his master's degree when I met him in counseling, and I think it inspired me to want a master's degree because I thought that it would be a really great opportunity to continue learning. And I thought I was going to go into counseling as well. And so started that degree right before we left, and then paused, and then restarted it in Arizona. And Michael was very encouraging and understood the challenges of what it's like to work full-time and actually have a couple jobs at that point and go to school at the same time, and how that time impacts your relationship, the time away from each other and the time with your homework.
So this wasn't a conversation you guys had, people are dating and you say, hey, do you want a couple kids? Where do you want to move? Do you think we might be pursuing higher education at some point? It wasn't something you guys discussed.
In the back of my mind, I always thought about continuing on in school, but again, it's life happens and work happens. And then, can I find a program where I could feel comfortable? And most places you can't just stop working and go to school. You have to figure out how to do both and how you're going to do that when you're starting a family and buying a house and all those things that come with being an adult.
So you guys are adulting. Now you've got kids and you both have master's degrees.
Yes.
And then who decided, let's take the next step?
So in 2012, I said, I think I want to get my doctorate because we had lots of friends that were in K-12 education who were amazing leaders. And I recognized that they all had those letters after their name. And I thought, I want that for myself to be able to grow. Michael's mom has her doctorate degree. And so I feel like she was an inspiration for both of us that she did it while she was working. I think I just said, I'm going to apply for this program and it's very competitive to get into. What do you think? And he was like, yeah, go for it. And I got in. And then it was like, whew, how do we pay for this? And what will this look like for us?
Wow. So you didn't dip your toe in. You just went for it. You didn't sit down at the table and say, let's plan a budget. Who's going to do the laundry? None of those conversations happened.
Oh, no.
No, but I do think that's probably a good tip. That's probably a good tip to actually have the conversation because it is a family commitment. A doctorate is a family commitment. Everyone has to be all in. And I think if they're at the same level of enthusiasm and understand that this is a dream or something you really want to pursue, that makes a big difference because it's a long marathon, right? Your kids don't understand at all when they will ever see the end of you closing the door to do homework or putting the sign on that says, Mommy's working.
So Michael, what was that like? You said, sure, honey, go for it. Yeah. And then when did reality kind of sink in here? Oh my goodness, this isn't just a master's degree. This is something different.
We've always had multiple jobs. Kelly's always had one or two projects while she's, working. I've always had other jobs. This actually was, I think, the first time that we just had a job apiece. Kelly's a morning person. So she gets up early and does all of her stuff. So that was super helpful. And we just kind of made a game of it with the kids where it's kind of like, hey, guess what? We won't see mom on Thursdays. So what are we going to do? If she was going out to class, are we staying home? Are we going to cook something? Are we going to go out? And just kind of made it an event. So that was fun. And not knowing the program or the process, I just knew Kelly where it's kind of like, hey, and you could tell either she was reading a book or reading an article or looking over the computer screen and said, I'll come back later. Now's not the time to be funny or whatever. So we just kind of figured it out kind of as we went. And I think we always forget how bad things are after. So it doesn't seem that bad. When I went through mine, I was like, I don't remember this. Like, I don't remember you being gone and doing all of this work. Mine's definitely harder than yours was.
There's definitely something protective, right, about hindsight, looking back and going, wow, that wasn't as bad as we thought. But it sounds like you guys were already a very active, busy couple. So you're kind of replacing, you were working multiple jobs. So now you're popping in your doctoral degree in lieu in one of those jobs. And Michael, it sounds like you really took this as an opportunity to spend more one-on-one time with the kids instead of, oh, mom can't come with us or mom's always busy. You made it exciting for the kids.
And they knew if you have a play or some sort of event on Thursdays, mom's probably not going to make it. And they knew that ahead of time. And I don't think there were too many tears for missed events or anything like that.
Just mine, I think. I think the mom guilt was worse than the experience. It would be really interesting actually to interview the kids about this, because I think as a parent, and I think there's the mom heart carries this sense of almost like I'm betraying my kids. I'm choosing me. This is something I want to do for me. And are they being damaged by a choice that I'm making essentially that will make our lives better? Fingers crossed, right? That you'll have additional opportunities that you didn't have before. And I had a lot of guilt about that. The great part is I found friends in the doc program that I was in who also were parents and recognized that we collectively shared in our guilt. And then recognized as well that when you have a significant other who is willing to be part of the journey, that makes all the difference. And the kids were excited about Thursday nights because it was like their time with Papa to go do something. I was like, I'm leaving. And, they were sort of like, peace out. I mean, they were 8 and 4. They were, they were fine. The weekends, I think, were harder, though. Sometimes you just need blocks of time to get work done. And so that was a challenge for me because the housework doesn't stop, the laundry doesn't stop. And I had the guilt, the spouse guilt as well, of that I couldn't manage all of it. I remember walking through the bedroom into the closet and then back into the office. And he would say, just don't look at it. I will take care of it. And sometimes he would say, I think maybe it's time for you to take a nap. I think you need to do some resting. So I would lay on the bed with my glasses on. And he would say, that's not napping. You actually have to take your glasses off in order to fully relax. Because when you finish with the reading or, I'm going to read 5 articles or I'm going to write 4 paragraphs or whatever that was, and you would pause, you would turn and recognize that all the rest of your life still has to happen. And so where that fits in, I think that's where the stress really comes from.
And Michael, did you just pick up the extra slack or did you guys get outside help? Did you have family helping with some of the extra tasks or chores and responsibilities that are naturally not getting done?
Both of our families were super helpful and would offer to do stuff. And I think that's something I think people need to think about too, is have a list. If someone says, hey, can I do something? Yep. Let me check. How do you feel about folding laundry? If they're going to ask, either they'll stop asking or they're going to help you out. And it's also about, I don't know if prioritizing is the right word, but trying to figure out something's got to go. So family comes in town only once in a while. So maybe this week I'm going to have to let the academic side go. Or, does the family know that, hey, guess what? Kelly's got to leave early or Michael's is going to come in late because of XYZ project or meeting with a group. So we just start without and everybody catches up when you get there.
What I'm really hearing through the strategies that you guys used to make this successful was a lot of communication and the way you communicating to the kids to make it fun. Michael, you being there to say, honey, take a break. Don't look at the laundry, letting things go that could go. Maybe the dishes sit in there for an extra day. There are only 24 hours in a day.
Yeah. And I think letting go is a really hard strategy to think about when you are essentially a type A personality. That isn't something that's in your repertoire. And the reason that you're in a doctoral program is because you are super ambitious. And so that means that you're super everything. And I think part of the growth of the journey that you don't think about is what changes in you. And the recognition collectively that our family was going to be a priority. So if we were going to have to miss a birthday party with the neighbors versus something directly that impacted our kids, we were always going to choose the kids. I feel like our circle became very small and we lost some people on the peripheral who didn't understand that we were prioritizing at this time, this education, this was going to be what we were focused on. And then those things out of your control, including the dishes, which will always be there, me had to learn to be okay with them sitting there.
So at one point you finish, Kelly, and Michael, you've been sitting here watching this. Most partners are just happy that their other half is done and they've seen them go through this. They don't think, hey, that looked like fun. I think I'm going to do it too.
That is true. It goes back to your thing about the communication piece. Kelly might have a different perspective, but to me, it seemed fun. Like I didn't know what a chapter one, I'm doing chapter 1. Okay, great. How many chapters you have to do? She's like 5. Like 5? What kind of, that's 5. It's done? What do you, but because she brought me along on that journey that she was going through, and it paralleled what I was doing. She would be talking about something that she had read or that she was doing. And I'm like, oh yeah, I could see that. Because I was working with the recruiting teachers and trying to hire teachers, and her work was about how to retain teachers from out of state. And we're in Arizona, like no one's from Arizona. Everyone's from out of state. So what do we do? And I'd come back from a recruiting or a job fair and be like, you'll never guess what I saw. and it would be something that she was talking about or whatever. So to me, it was fun as sitting on the outside watching someone else do all the work could be. But it was fun because it was something that I could relate to. That made it easier, I think.
And I feel like what was happening is because my research was around an area that he was living in, human resources with the school district, and we were the people they were sending out to job fairs for recruiting. We had all this time to talk about, I just read this, and such and such a district is trying this strategy. What do you think about that? And in fact, we even talked about how do we ensure that we're getting the right teachers in the right seats on the bus. And so we created a new hiring protocol, like just questions. I think we did that on the plane when we were going to a job fair to try to figure out, what's at the heart of a teacher versus just the standard questions. So I think that, to me, from my perspective, seemed to inspire you that this was good. It will help my job and it will move me forward. It was 2018, I think, when you said, I'm going to apply for the program. I said, do it.
I want to talk about that, but just to back up a little bit, what I really heard you talking about there was you guys were in a really unique situation, and that what you were studying and learning about was of interest to Michael. I've talked to other students that say, my spouse, my partner is done. They don't want to hear about the neurobiology of whatever, right? I can't, who do I talk to? My spouse doesn't want to hear it. So you had an area of study that you were interested in and could talk to Michael about it, and he found it interesting too. So that was probably pretty helpful.
For sure.
But yeah, it's really important, and I don't want to understress the importance of trying to bring that person along, or your team or whomever, because you're not the same. You're really a different person after going through this process. How important it is that if I shut you out or don't include you, or at least offer, in 3 years, I'm not going to be the same person. And Kelly would say, oh, you're not going to read an article the same way again, or you're going to start asking this. And I'm like, whatever. And then one time I said something and I'm like, oh my God. I asked somebody, to tell me more about this data, because what does that mean? It really changes everything, how you interpret stuff. And then also people look at you differently now. Like when you speak, hopefully, they're wanting to hear what you have to say. You feel more comfortable being able to speak to a topic, and it's almost natural to refer back to research. So I'm not just saying that this is better for teachers and this is better for students. I'm saying this is better for teachers, this is better for students, and here are the 15 other people who said the same thing. So it's not just me talking. I'm just taking what they're saying and applying it to our situation. There are some people who do that naturally, but for me, that wasn't a thing. I've changed as a person by going through the process.
And I watch students in the same situation. Whoever is your chosen people who are around you in that very small circle, it's important for them to learn the academic vocabulary that you're suddenly starting to speak. To Michael's point, he was like, what is the big deal? 5 chapters? Can't you just be done with that in 2 classes? How long is a chapter? All of a sudden you realize that you're starting to use terminology that is unfamiliar, especially if your small circle is not in academia. And so I think it's important to, even if somebody isn't super interested in it, I think there's some two-way communication around, tell me the most interesting thing you read today. What did you learn today about your topic? And I think there's a commitment to hanging in there through the entire conversation of that, because if the topic is right that you chose for your dissertation or project, you are on fire about it and you want to process. And if it's not your other, then look for the people who are fired up when you're talking about it, or they're like, we'll humor you to get through that until they can tell you about their topic. Because colleagues and I would do that with our own work. There were some topics that, weren't super exciting to me either, but when you see the enthusiasm from the other person, then you choose to buy in, you choose to listen, you choose to recognize this is important to them, so it's important to me.
Often we talk on the podcast about the doctoral journey being transformative. And I don't want it to sound too creepy, but it's a little bit like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. You
Yeah.
say you change, and you do. So if you're in a significant relationship and you don't have communication where you're sharing through the journey, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, however long it takes later, you may not recognize the person sitting across from you at the dinner table.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes. And we've seen that. Certainly seen that with friends as well. Research around this topic that Michael and I happen to read is around this idea that there's a family orientation, that a doctoral program provides a family orientation. That blew my mind because it makes so much sense. Like we talked when we were in K-12 that we would do orientations for family members about the commitment of being a teacher in this particular district. And it would make a ton of sense, especially even now having teenage kids who understood this process a lot more, to sit down with them and say, okay, what is this going to look and sound like? And how can they be involved? Both of our kids today could tell you about our dissertations, not because they've read them for sure, but because they became very interested in the adult level conversations that were happening around the topic, or between my mom and I, or Michael's mom and I, or, his friend who was in the program. They were listening in, and they are very articulate about the topics even today, especially because Michael's is so recent and so current as to what's happening in the world.
I love that idea of a family orientation. For you administrators out there
Right.
listening, here's an idea.
Yeah. One thing that Kelly's group did was every semester, there was like a show out where each person would get up and talk about their thing. And the families were invited, and it was more of an event. And you got to know, people knew who I was. I don't know how many Sues or Wendy's or Linda's or Lori's that Kelly has friends of. So it was easier. She's like, oh no, you met that Lori. Now I know who you're talking about, because we have our work families, our families, and then you have your doctoral family. And it's like, okay, what Lori are we talking about? So those type of things really helped make the family feel included, because it's like now when you're talking about something in the class, or if there's a lull in conversation, well, how's Wendy doing on her work? What is she doing? You'll hear about who's struggling, who's trying to get interviews, or who can't get whatever. So these things are super helpful as far as, I think, adding to the retention of the people in the program. You connect to one another, but then your families kind of get connected if possible.
And I think online, you have to be super intentional. You have to seek people out. So if you're doing a virtual in residence and you are really excited about what Heather is talking about, then you message Heather in the chat and connect, and start your new chosen family of doc students, because just having one person like that just to bounce ideas off of and connect to can really make a difference in the feeling piece, which we know helps get you through.
We know a doctoral journey can feel very isolating. So building up your academic family, but also being very conscious of bringing your inner circle, your immediate family, whatever you want to call it, along with you on the journey to a certain extent, so that you feel that support and you have that support. So I'm wondering, Kelly, when Michael was going through the program, do you think the fact that you had been through a program was helpful in supporting him?
I do. I think it might have been annoying at times as well, as it was a weird life, because I'm teaching doctoral students and then I'm living with the doctoral student. And so I felt like I was doing a lot of editing of doctoral students' work. And the fascinating part to me was I could see as an instructor how his writing was evolving over time. And that was sort of exciting, but it was hard at 10 o'clock at night when he would finish a draft and be like, okay, can you look at this? Because it's due by midnight, but it was different in the sense of we as a family collectively knew, okay, this is a new commitment. He's going to be gone now. We understand that if we say he's working, if his office door is closed, if he isn't coming to the family barbecue, we all understood what that was about. And to be quite honest, because we were essentially home during COVID, it wasn't all that radically different, because there weren't events that we were going to anyways. It was essentially, he was in the other room with the door closed, and that meant, he was working.
So I'm wondering, here you are about to celebrate 20 years. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Did you guys have a date night?
I don't know that we had a specific night, we are good with chunks of time. So they don't have to be necessarily a whole event. They're a little bit more spontaneous. Like we're going to pick up donuts by ourselves in the morning for the family. That counted, right? We would say, oh, this is a date. If we could carve out small chunks of time, I would say that's a tip for everyone. My really close friends understood that I couldn't give them hours. I couldn't just hang out because the weight of the project would sit on my shoulder, and I wasn't even able to sometimes be fully present. And so my girlfriend had suggested this strategy, which we ended up using too, which is basically I can give you an hour, but I'm going to commit in my mind and heart that I'm going to be fully present for that hour. So that meant putting the phone away, essentially just being there and enjoying every moment of that hour, and then feeling like I had connection time, but then I needed to get back to family and or all the things as well as the writing. And that was really helpful because I didn't lose touch. We had a few friends who didn't understand this commitment to this work. They trickled away, and that's just how I think life goes. I don't know, Michael?
It's almost the reorganization or the redefining of things. So no one gets away for a 3-day, weekend trip or anything like that. But we had this really nice little, actually it's a large grocery store, and you could order meat and they would grill it for you so you could prep for the week, but that would take 45 minutes. Well, they also had a wine bar. Well, guess what? Sunday afternoon, guess where we're going?
Grocery shopping.
We're going grocery shopping. You know what I mean? So it's like, why are you guys gone so long? What are you doing? You're like, oh, don't worry about it. We're going grocery shopping. I want to go. No. You stay here. Your mom and I are going to go grocery shopping. Just the random little times. And, Augie's got a swim practice, or, well, that's going to take an hour and a half. What are we going to do? Go see, go do, have something to eat for that little bit of time. So I think we really, renegotiate or redefined our time. And I think that was helpful.
So getting creative and doing this as a couple, like you said, Michael, hey, maybe you're not getting away for these weekends anymore, but you're going out for donuts on Sunday. You're going to call it a date. And for the person who's in the program, you're going to be fully present.
That's right.
Knowing that it's just for this amount of time. And then when you need to check out and get back to writing, the partner is releasing you without guilt, is what I'm hearing. I'm hearing, Michael, that you were very supportive when Kelly was going through the program. And Kelly, when Michael was going through the program, you both understood we've made this commitment together as a family. So there's not going to be guilt or shame. There was some self kind of mother stuff going on, Kelly. But it was interesting because as you were talking, what I heard was how much value your family got out of it. So you were feeling absent, but here your kids got to see how a couple negotiates doing something that's an investment for not just the individual, but the entire family.
That's right. And our son, who's about to go into college, I remember his social media posts when Michael graduated, and it was basically like, yeah, I don't have a choice. I'm getting my doctorate degree, and it in jest, but it's interesting how that model of something that I have initially viewed as being selfish trickles out and now is picked up as this is a badge of honor and courage. And it's something that I want to do too. And we've had certainly friends who have experienced the same thing that have said, well, if you guys can do it, then maybe we can make this work. But it's really important, I think, to look around at who's in the circle, even if the circle is so teeny, even if it's you and your dog and some plants, and you look at, okay, where can I reach out? Where can I activate some sort of additional support? Who are people that I care about, who I trust, who will be my cheerleaders? Because there were times that when things were hard for Michael in his writing, or he was frustrated, and I would look at the feedback from his committee or from his instructors and think, oh, I don't know if I would have said it that way, right? Because I live in that same world. And yet me criticizing his instructors wasn't going to help him at all. It was hearing what is the feeling piece for him, which at that point was exhaustion, frustration. And somebody needs to just be there to say, you know what, just put it away tonight and it'll be there tomorrow. And you're going to do this and it will get better. Because there were points, I think, that both of us said, I don't think I can keep doing this. And the other person was there to cheer you forward. So find your chosen people that are your cheerleaders.
Yeah. And for me, it was I don't know if it was my aha moment, but definitely an aha moment was like, this is just like going to the academy. This is a process. They want me to succeed. So kind of getting through my head, not only do I want this, and even when I'm questioning, maybe I do, I know my family does, but also the program wants me to succeed. They're going to work with me and they're not going to tell me something unless it's needed. And then all the other people who are putting their name on your work, they want it to be good as well. So it's a process. And once I kind of had that part where I'm like, all right, I got it. Now it's just time. It's just making the time to get stuff done. And there were some really heavy times because my work was ironically or unfortunately or fortunately was super connected to all the civil and social unrest that was going on. So I never had a break. I'm reading about it. I'm writing about it. Man, I need to take a break. Oh, it's on TV.
Yeah.
or it's going on at school. So that part was difficult. And just kind of being able to compartmentalize that time and be like, I got it. I can get through it.
So you're going through the process as a student. There's times where there's going to be days that aren't filled with puppy dogs and rainbows, right? And what I'm hearing is that it was really important to have, whether it's your spouse or a partner or someone else in your circle, to maybe even just remind you, hey, it's okay, take a break, put it away, let's come back and look at this tomorrow, to have someone there to encourage you to take that pause so that you don't feel like quitting or dropping out or saying, forget it, this is too much.
Yeah, it's those reminders. You've done hard things. You know, Michael and I together as a couple in the last 20 years, we used to make a list every year of the highs and lows. I think once we had kids somewhere along the sleepless night, we stopped doing that. But when I look at those, and maybe that's something we start back up again, I recognize that we've been through some really hard things in our life. And this is like an amazing hard thing. So it's kind of like a baby, because essentially you think you want it, you have a baby, they're amazing, and then they're exhausting. And yet, as you watch your kiddos grow, you're like, oh, I planted those seeds in them. You know, there's parts of their personality that I'm like, oh yeah, that's from me. That's not always the good things, but they are growing and blossoming. The dissertation writing process, the whole program is like that. It's exhausting and exhilarating at the same time. So,
and it's like a baby in that people can tell you all day long what it's like to have a baby, and you don't know anything about what it's like until you have a baby.
Right.
And your baby and my baby are different, and they respond different, and I parent different, and all of those things. So for Michael and I think one of the challenges for him, I would guess, was that because I had been through it, there were times that I was like, oh, this isn't that big a deal. Like, just, it's IRB, it'll be fine. Like, just fill out the forms, you know. And for him, it was a big deal. So there may have been times that I under prioritized his stress because I knew that essentially he was going to get through it. But I was also able to say, and he knows because he watches what I do with my students, to his point of, your chair wants you to succeed. No one on your committee is sitting behind the scenes maniacally laughing, saying, how can I get rid of this student? Ultimately, it comes back to, am I willing to commit the time? And do I have the space and support to do that? Because research tells us that family support is critical. And whatever that family looks and sounds like doesn't matter, but family support is critical to getting through a dissertation.
And I think that is just a great little soundbite for anyone out there who's supporting someone who's going through this process when they're frustrated and when they're feeling down in the dumps, to say, listen, they want you to succeed. Remember, they want you to finish, in that one little sentence, and then maybe doing some laundry and preparing some meals might be a nice little bonus.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure.
We know statistically a lot of people who start a doctoral program don't finish, right? They're about 50%. We also know that the divorce rate is very high for people who are pursuing a doctoral program. So here you are, not just one, but two. What about some final words of wisdom, whether it's for the person who's in the program or the person who's supporting the person in the program?
I think for the person who is in the program, find yourself a theme song. Jason Mraz was my go-to. The I Won't Give Up song was a song. Michael heard me play it over and over and over again because I needed something that every time I heard it would push me forward. And it also talks about relationships. So it can be me in the dissertation or me in the relationship, which is saying you're navigating through this really hard space, but I'm here waiting for you. I'm here waiting and I'm not giving up. So I'm not giving up on the dissertation. And I knew that Michael wasn't giving up on me, even though it was hard. But the other advice I would give someone who is supporting anyone going through this process is to just simply be there, be involved, ask specifically what you can do to help, what can come off the plate. Where can I be the most supportive? And sometimes a person doesn't know how to answer that. So to Michael's point, giving a multiple choice question is really helpful. Can I fold your laundry? Could I make 2 meals that you put in your fridge so that if you're working late or early, that you have something nutritious and good for your body? Can I pick your kids up and take them to a practice because it's right in the middle of your work time? So I think sometimes the specificity is better than just the overall idea of what can I do to help you? Michael, what are you thinking?
The communication both ways, I think is super important. And we say things like family, but in my family, they're not all blood or legally family. So bring those family people along, because different times you need different things. Like sometimes I just need someone to put it bluntly and break it down for me in a way that Kelly won't or can't. So I had a person who was like, really? That's your holdup? Come on, just do this and get over it and move on. And if that circle is in your group, like your cohort that you're going through, super helpful, because then you get to, hey, where are you at? I'm really stuck on this. Kelly is a type A. I don't know what I am, but I'm not a type A. You know what I mean? But I had type A's in my group. So I'm like, I got to keep up with so-and-so. And sometimes it was great having someone who works that much further ahead. Well, seek them out because they already did it. They've gone through maybe only by a week, or maybe they got their feedback from the chair 2 weeks ago. Hey, what did they say? Okay, let me make that change. You know what I mean? So communicate and listen, because that's part of communication. Let people know where you are. We did pretty well in our cohort. We didn't lose too many, but when we found out that someone was gone, I was like, oh, I wish they would have told me, or I wish I would have known something. So listening and then listening for those cues that maybe this isn't going right. You know what I mean? If everything's stupid and everyone's a jerk, they might be hitting that wall. So maybe we need to reach out and help support them. No one wants to tell, or don't be afraid to tell, maybe is a better thing. Don't be afraid to tell that you're stuck.
Yeah.
Or that you're frustrated, because you're 100% not the only one. And you could be helping someone else stay in the program. You're not alone. And I can make it through this semester. I can make it through this week. I can get this paper in. So I would say it's the full definition of communication, both listening and speaking.
And if you're not in a cohort, create a cohort for yourself. Whatever that looks and sounds like is fine. Join the club, join the student club, the PhD, EdD, whatever that student club is. There is someone in that group who is also looking to create a cohort. And it doesn't have to be an official model that the school adopts, but certainly you can create that experience of just having the people who get it with you.
Yeah, I think if I had to put one overarching theme here, what I'm hearing is support is critical to this process. And you all had support within your household, which is awesome. And you gave great tips for how to facilitate that for people going through this process or who has someone going through the process, but also to take initiative to build your tribe, take initiative to build that support, and to not be afraid to ask for help or to be authentic with the people that you know, love, and trust so that they can be there for you when you need that, because you're going to need it at some point, right? As much fun as we have learning and sharing things, there's going to be a point on this journey where things get rough. So be ready, preventatively have your tribe in your back pocket.
Yes.
100%.
Well said.
Well, you guys, thank you so much for being so brave to come on and share your experience. And it was really a joy to talk to you today.
Thank you so
Heather.
much. It was
Appreciate
great.
being here.
Thanks for listening, and I look forward to connecting with you on the next episode. The Happy Doc Student Podcast is brought to you by expandyourhappy.com, and you can learn more there. Oh, and hey, if you want to make my day, would you rate, review, and subscribe to this show? One more thing. Just a quick reminder that the information, opinions, and recommendations presented in this podcast are for general information only.